Hello, welcome to Off the Shelf Reviews.
I'm pretty sure Warwick Davis is taller than Gary.
And I'm Gary. And today we're going to review and discuss Willow, which released in 1988 with a story by George Lucas and a screenplay by Bob Dolman and directed by Ron Howard. Ian, why don't you give us the synopsis?
It is a time of dread. Seers foretell of a child that will rise up and stop the evil Queen Bavmorda. But she is rescued by Willow, played by Warwick Davis, and he embarks on a quest to stop the evil queen and bring the child to its palace.
This way. This way. That's what I said. This way.
So George Lucas was working on Return of the Jedi when he first met Warwick Davis and was so impressed by him that apparently he dedicated and wrote the entire script for Willow with Warwick Davis in mind for the role.
Nice.
And of course, I believe he was only 17 or 18 when he accepted this part as a lead role.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, he didn't get top billing though, as that goes to Val Kilmer. And Joanne, Whalley, who get billing above him, which is a little bit unfair, but I think...
I don't know. I mean, Willow, for me, it's kind of always been maybe his movie or double act movie with Val Kilmer.
Yeah. There was a budget of about $35 million for the film.
Yeah.
Which is, and also when you consider that George Lucas also co-financed this film with his own money, and of course with Industrial Light and Magic at the Skywalker Ranch.
Yeah.
Investing into this quite heavily. And it was considered a bit of a gamble, really, because fantasy movies had not had proven track records in the box office.
Yeah.
Like Ridley Scott's Legend didn't do very well. Labyrinth, believe it or not, Jim Henson's didn't do the money that you'd think it did.
Yeah.
It was really the home market that really made these films its budget. But there was other films as well, like Dragon Slayer, Krull.
Yeah, Krull.
And even though they may be cult classics, again, they didn't make their money in the box office. And so you could see why this was a bit of a gamble with this film. And why there was not a lot... I mean, Willow also failed at the box office. It only got its money back on home VHS. Until it eventually got its cult following. Probably by all the kids that loved this film that eventually grew up to treasure it.
Yeah. I mean, I'm a massive fan of this film. I watched it when I was at such a tiny age. But at the same time, I'd grown up on that. Like, they may have failed at the box office, but come on, these are the same people that said The Thing was a failure, in 82. These films made their money back, but only when they hit that mass market material. People were not taking their children to the cinema back in that time, and so they really weren't going to go sit there with their child and make them watch Willow. But get it on VHS, get them the board game, get them the video game, and all of a sudden you've just got, fantasy legend heads coming out of the woodwork saying, give me, it's my precious, I always feel this movie is like a Sunday afternoon, like a proper day off, bank holiday kind of movie, because when you're a kid, you're only really having time off when it's the holidays. And if your parents are busy, they're looking for a film to throw on. And this was on like maybe BBC One a lot. And I just immediately fell in love with it. Fell in love with the style, by George Lucas being a massive Star Wars head. Warwick Davis you say like he loses top billing. I feel this film, every time you talk about this film, his face is plastered all over it. Just him telling this story of Willow Ufgood, who's he's not a hobbit. Like, hobbits are taller.
Well, it is definitely inspired by The Lord of the Rings, but it also borrows pretty heavily from Star Wars itself. We've got the reluctant hero, the farm boy, who has to go on this adventure, and there's going to be princesses and dragons.
But Willow, he's got a family. The little kind of village that he lives in, he's trying to tend to his land, trying to keep his farm up, and we've seen the child at the castle with Queen Badmortar, played by Jean Marsh.
Jean Marsh is incredible in this role.
Yes.
Now, most of us will always recognize her as well from Return to Oz. The evilness just exudes from her face. She doesn't even have to say anything.
That's it. If I see this woman in anything, I'm like, evil, get her away from me. She terrifies me.
But straight away, I'm just wrapped up in the atmosphere of the film, the music straight away, the set decorations, the matte paintings. This world is believable right away.
See, for me as well, it always takes me back to Conan the Barbarian. You know, Conan the Barbarian had been a big success, but then they tried to hit us with Conan the Destroyer, which had been a failure. You know, and then you've got all these kind of Roger Corman-esque, you know, sequels being made where it's just like Krull and Deathstalker and Dragon Slayer. So for Willow to actually say, actually, we're getting rid of the heroes right off the offset, but here's your villains. You know, these are the people you're scared of. The child is immediately whisked away by a nursemaid.
A handmaiden, yeah.
Yeah, and you know, we're led to believe that this child is extra special. Here's this little tattoo. Weirdly enough, I've only just realised this after like the 100 millionth watching this movie. The Queen is terrified of the child, and yet the child does nothing.
Well, it's the prophecy. There's the prophecy she's scared of.
Well, the prophecy it prophesies that this child will come forward and she will die, or be involved in the death of the Queen. That's why she's got to get her. But the child is whisked away, kind of sent down the river like Moses, as the handmaiden is torn apart by dogs.
Yeah, those Rottweilers in makeup, essentially. I was like, well, it's not the last time filmmakers will try and dress up a dog as something that it's not.
Man, those things terrify me. They're like wolves, like supposed to be the kind of like dire wolves, but just watching them just hit this woman, that kind of got me as a child. Like, oh,
it's the savagery of the off-screen killing
yeah,
as well.
Like,
isn't it?
I can get into this because this is what I've been reading in stories. You know, when you read a book involved in fantasy, they don't hold back and cut to something else. You read about the deaths of these people. The baby ends up, you know, with the Uthgood family, and the children find it first, and then Willow's wife Kaya, she finds it. I fell in love with this kind of family element very easily when I was a kid, because you know these are the peaceful people. Nothing really harms these people, but here's the ring, I suppose.
Right.
Here's the magical treasure.
It is the MacGuffin, essentially.
Yeah, basically.
Yeah.
And when we get to the celebration at the village, this is where we're kind of revealed as well that Willow is actually like kind of in part magical.
Well, he's an aspiring magician.
Yeah.
Who basically knows some parlor tricks. But he's convinced himself that now is going to be his moment. He's going to get picked by the Grand Wizard.
Yeah.
And, we see this entire village filled of, you know, little people. And Warwick Davis said, I think this goes on record as being the largest casting call for little people ever in film. I think he said there was up to 240 of them at once.
Nice.
And we get this whole brilliant set that's built to scale. You know, and we see Willow performing his tricks. He's got a hole in a wooden piece over his arm. He's putting the spike on fire through. We see him make the pig disappear.
Well,
but of course it fails, and his arch nemesis Burglecut.
Oh yes,
is ridiculing him, accusing Willow of stealing his grains. And so we get all of this build up before the Grand Wizard turns up, and he has his prospective students essentially, and they've all got to pick a finger, the finger of power, and they all fail.
No apprentice this year.
And we're crushed along with Willow because we were so ready to get beyond our hero here.
Yeah.
But soon enough, the village gets attacked by those devil dogs.
Yeah.
And because we'd already seen the devastating effect of them in a scene prior, we know what they're after and what they're going to do. And we watch them tear that cot to pieces.
Yeah.
We got Willow's daughter in the middle of this, fleeing crowd just screaming. And she delivers it so well. It breaks your heart every time you see that little girl screaming for her mama. While these devil dogs are running around. And it's not then we get the armed guards with the spears actually manage to kill this devil dog.
I just love the fact that obviously this whole thing had gone from a great massive celebration to a bit of a downer for Willow, but now we've got this major action sequence. No major special effects or, like I said, no massive barbarian coming in with a sword and cutting things to pieces. Just a couple of dogs in costume ripping apart this cot. And when you know as well as the audience why they're here, like the rest of them are just, running around trying to cover what's going on. Willow's running straight back home.
Well, this is the thing that I love how easily this film flows from the Bathmorda castle to the child in the lake to the family picking it up to the introduction to the town to now the call to arms essentially as to what's going on.
Yeah.
Where we have the council meeting. And it's one of the things that I always found quite funny in the film is that Willow knows, like, the town people hate him.
Yeah.
He's convinced they don't like him anyway. And so he's like, how can we deliver this Daikini baby to the council? Because they're going to blame me for all of the issues. There'll be a flood or a plague or a famine and I'll be blamed for it. And so the moment he's walking into the council member with the child, they're just like, yeah, to the pit with whoever's responsible for bringing these devil dogs to our town. She just turns around to walk right back out again.
Man, I love the High Aldwin, played by Billy Barty. I mean, he was Gwildor in Masters of the Universe, another classic. And like you say, everybody kind of hates him. He's kind of sympathetic because they'd also had that moment where he's like, which finger were you going to pick, Willow? And Willow's like, well, I was going to pick my own. And you're like, oh, yeah, your own power, it's inside you kind of thing. So the High Aldwin's just like, look, this is kind of your destiny. Out the gods, out of everybody, they've picked you to do this. And yeah, you've got Burglecut just kind of stood there ridiculing Willow, just like, no, you can't take any of the guards with you. You can't take Tony Cox with you, from Me, Myself and Irene, and I can't I can't go with you either. And then the High Aldwin's like, no, you're all going. Off you go. It's like, I love this little whole travelling little section because, like you said, Fellowship of the Ring, Conan the Barbarian, you just have to have a montage of people just walking, things changing. Love the landscape in the background.
Oh, the matte paintings are beautiful. The cinematography is excellent. The use of shadows and the montage of them going on this journey. They're going beyond the boundaries of their known safety.
Well, as I said, they don't even name this place, do we? Like you get names of kind of locations that they've got to go to, but it's not like, oh, this is Fantasia.
It is one criticism I have of the film is that we don't have a map. We don't really get to see where everything is in relation to each other.
I suppose that's what also keeps it self-contained when you watch Willow, that you haven't got like this whole massive universe to kind of take into account.
It's just a little bit surprising considering how solid the world building is, though.
Yeah,
and that's what George Lucas was really a master at here. And it's not long before our band of Nelwyns encounter Madmartigan.
Oh.
They don't know who he is yet, but they find this starved, hungry prisoner in a crow's nest.
Yeah.
And Burglecut's like, hey, we found a Daikini, give him the baby, we're out of here, we're going home.
Yeah.
And, straight away Willow was just like, are you kidding me? This guy's been locked up for a reason. Like, we got to do better than this.
Yeah.
And Burglecut's like, no, we're done, we're leaving. We're sorry, we're out of here. And he takes his entire retinue and goes. And it's only Migosh, who stays with his friend Willow. It's like, I'll stand by you. And they spend the night there. They talk to Madmartigan. We get some soldiers come passing by in the morning. And we get a little bit, because we don't get too much backstory for Madmartigan. It was in the screenplay. They decided to cut it and not film it because the film was already going to be 2 hours long. There's a lot of deleted scenes in this film. I'll mention some of them when we get to it.
Yeah.
But they decide they are going to release Madmartigan and give him the chance because he seems to have reformed overnight somehow.
Well, he kind of convinces them because, like, yeah, he's angry to be stuck in that cage. He's dying of thirst. But he overhears that, like, Willow does want to go home. He doesn't want to be here. He doesn't want to be walking around in this world because they're really mistreated, these Nelwyns. They're like I said, they're lower than kind of hobbits, where even when the army comes past, they just kind of ignore them. They just, nope, you're a peck. That's what they call them. They call them pecks, which even as a kid I was like, man, that's really insulting. Like, you don't ever say that.
Well, that was really stupid, Peck.
Don't call me a peck.
Oh, I'm sorry. Peck.
And you have the whole conversation between Madmartigan and Eric the Red, who's leading the army, and basically, like, Madmartigan's just like, let me out. I will win this war for you. And Eric's just like, no. You don't follow anything other than yourself, which is kind of convincing Willow, like, I can't just give him this baby, even though he's really convincing and he's in the cage and he'll basically take care of it. But once they unlock him and, let him out, you know, he picks up the baby. He's just like, yeah, I'll take the milk. Yeah, I'll take all this kind of stuff. And Willow's just like, look, you promised to take care of the baby. Yeah, I've got it. He walks off. And then 5 minutes later, a crow comes flying past with a baby in its grasp and a little man riding it.
A little brownie.
Yeah! I stole the baby! I stole the baby!
Of course, Willow hears this. He knows straight away, that's my baby.
Oh my god.
And he goes chasing the brownie into the woods before he gets knocked out by an army of brownies. Wakes up Gulliver's Travel style.
Yeah.
Tied down, surrounded by these brownies. But then that's when we get introduced to Galadriel. I mean, the Queen of the Fairies.
Yeah.
And she's like, no, brownies, untie these Nelwyn. They're Alora Dannon. That's who this baby is, Willow, and she's chosen you as her protector and her guide. Now you need to go and find Finn Rizal, and then you need to head to Tirith Leen, and then you need to defeat Queen Bath Mordor. And Willow's like, I just want to go home and my farm. Nobody's looking after my farm.
Like she goes kind of really scary because she disappears at one point, and then she comes like full screen headshot, like, I'm telling you, this is what you must do. And Willow's like, Migosh, you go home. You know, like, tell Kaya I'll try and be home by, tomorrow. And I'm like, because he, and I really love that about Warwick Davis, the building of Willow's character is like, you're feeling the travel, like he could die at any point, and you don't want him to die, and you don't want the baby to die, so he's going to do everything to protect the baby. So then when they kind of, stumble into the prancing pony, I mean, this bar, and he's just looking for somewhere warm. It's raining outside. He needs to probably change her diaper. Get some milk. He definitely doesn't want to run into Madmartigan at any point. And then he kind of bumps into this woman who's not really a woman.
Not a woman. Not a woman. Yeah. And of course, Saoirse has turned up with her guards. They're looking for this baby sent out by Queen Bath Mordor, and they find the baby.
Oh.
And so
yeah, Saoirse, man, the daughter of Queen Bath Mordor. Man, I kind of really loved always the interaction between Madmartigan and Saoirse.
The chemistry was there, wasn't it?
The chemistry was always really, really playful. And, we have this first interaction from them. And there's just a way that, like, she realizes that, he's not really a woman. He's this guy. And he's kind of looked at her and it's just like, you're really beautiful. And then there's this moment later on where he's kind of got this love potion that's knocked over him. And he really kind of talks to her. But after you watch the Vow documentary, and after you realize that these two, this man and this woman, got married straight after or during the production of this movie. Val Kilmer had already fallen in love with her before in London after seeing her, but had never had the guts to actually go up and speak to her. And here he is speaking to her on the set of this film. You see the twinkle in his eye, especially that little smile that he gives when she reveals that thing.
Yeah.
Oh man, it's...
Yeah, he apparently struggled to remember his lines after having kisses with her on screen.
Oh, man.
But apparently Val Kilmer ad-libbed much of his dialogue in the film anyway.
Yeah.
But we've heard stories that Val Kilmer can be difficult to work with on film sets, and so... But I think Val Kilmer really made this character come to life. He's immortalized the role of Madmartigan.
You're no woman.
Now, honey.
Not a woman!
Easy.
Gentlemen, not a woman! Meet Lug.
This is really now leading us into our great big first action scene as
Yes.
Lug, the not a woman, comes over. We get the quick, joke line, meet Ugg, poof, as the first guard gets taken out, and the chase scene ensues where they get onto the back of the horse and cart. They're shooting through the forest.
Yeah.
The armed guards on horses chasing after them. The wheel explodes after they ramp over a fallen tree.
Like you said, like the pace of this movie is just kept going. Even when it goes to slow down, 2 seconds later, it's like bang, action sequence.
Yeah, and it's great. The only kind of issue I have is the brownies. Now I know a lot of people criticize the film as having unnecessary comic relief. And so our miniature R2-D2 and C-3PO, they bungle around the sets. They basically spend most of the film trying not to get squished. But occasionally they do help out, where they manage to cut some of the bindings that let the barrel roll off the back of the cart to knock out a guard. But they are comic relief. I as a kid, I loved them. As an adult, I don't mind them, but I know it can put a lot of people off. Now, one thing that will put people off as well is how they're superimposed. Obviously, Rick Overton and Kevin Pollak filmed all of their scenes separately on a green or a blue screen and were superimposed into the film.
Yeah.
And because they're in so much of the film, there's a lot of it that doesn't look right. The superimposing of them in the film, not quite polished.
I kind of always just forgave it, even first time I saw it after 88. I was just like, It's like to me, like in the 90s, especially when I saw it, I'm like, how are you going to superimpose two people like that?
At that size, yeah.
There's no way you could do it. And yet, these guys did it, and it doesn't look right.
Stupid Daikini. Ask him to stop the wagon. Gather your wits. Come on. Don't worry about me, I'm fine. Ooh. Come on.
And Madmartigan says to Willow, look, you keep getting into trouble. Something bad's going to happen to this baby. I'll stick with you. And we'll head to the lake. We'll find Finn Rizal. As soon as I get there, I'll leave. And I kind of do love that interaction between him and the brownies, where he's just like, go find me some food. And they're like, hey, we're not your hunters. And he's like, no. And they're like, ah.
It was one of the earliest mum jokes I remember in a film, where he's just like, and take your lizard people and drown them.
Yeah.
And Raoul turns to him and goes, your mother was a lizard. It's just like, is that one of the first mum jokes in film? I don't know.
This way. No. This way. But they get to the island.
Now, I just want to bring up, there is, like I said, there was some deleted scenes in the film.
Yeah.
And a lot of people have wondered what happened to Willow's acorns. Because before he left, the Grand Wizard gave him 3 acorns.
Yeah.
And he was told that they will turn whatever he throws them to stone.
Yeah.
And in the film, he only ever has 2 acorns that he uses. The third one kind of disappeared.
Well, he drops one, and then he uses one. Oh, yeah.
This deleted scene here, where he goes out, I believe, to find Rizal on this island.
Yeah.
He gets attacked by a fish boy.
Okay.
That's what the crew called him anyway. It's a boy that jumps onto the boat. Willow kicks him off. Then he reveals he's got these sharp teeth. Then he dives into the water and we can see that he's got the shapings of a fish. Oh. Then a giant fish attacks Willow on the boat.
Okay.
But they cut it all because, well, the fish wasn't working and it was kind of reminiscent of Jaws.
Yeah.
The fish just wouldn't work and they were like, plus running out of time. The film's getting too long. So this entire sequence is cut. And Willow actually used one of the acorns there to save himself from the fish boy.
Never dawned on me. Jesus.
But he does then make it to the island, only to not find the Grand Sorceress Rizal anywhere.
Well, we kind of. I mean, we realise that she's been turned into an animal by Bavmorda, and
I think it's a possum.
Yeah, and they head back over to the other side of the shore, and once they get back there, you realise that Madmartigan's been captured by Sorcerer and General KO and the whole army, and so obviously Willow's been captured, and they are in their cage and they're getting ready to obviously escape because the brownies are really good. It's kind of cool that I know they're like the comic relief, but in these kind of films and this kind of storyline, you always need like the comic relief to do something cool to get them out of this impossible situation. They're surrounded by hundreds of the enemy. There is just like, there's no way Madmartigan can fight everybody, even though he's the world's greatest swordsman. Even Willow, when he's trying to use like the wand to turn Finn Rizal back, because as soon as he does that, she will be more powerful than anybody, just as much as Queen Bavmorda, because the wand that he's got is from the Queen of the Fairies. So all the elements are there for the heroes just to kick ass. And then the magic potion comes out, the love potion. And you've already had the joke in the pub because the brownie had got it into the face and he's fallen in love with a cat. And it seemed really funny. So then when it happens to Val Kilmer, and like I said, as soon as he starts talking to Sorcerer, like I can feel the love there. Like, I know people might say, oh, Val Kilmer's kind of difficult to work with. He might ad-lib everything. Yeah, got him a wife.
I dwell in darkness without you. And it went away. Yeah, it's a great moment. I mean, it's a little bit like, we got Willow like in the tent, like, get the baby! What are you doing? We're going to get killed! But he's completely infatuated with Sorcerer. He's been knocked on the noggin by the dust of broken heart from the fairies.
Yeah.
So he's beside himself. And but it's convincing because she gets caught up in the moment. And when Kale and the guards come in, she's just like, deceivers!
Yeah.
Like, "Ugh." And then, of course, we get that longing moment where they stare at each other when they get out of the tent before they jump down onto the shield ski slide down the mountain. I mean, they filmed this in London. They filmed it in Wales. They filmed it at the Skywalker Ranch. And they also filmed this sequence on the New Zealand mountaintops. So they globe-trotted for the locations in this film, and you feel it.
It does seem a bit far-fetched, though. Like, I do love a fantasy landscape next to the next person, but it also feels like with Willow, like I said, they just go to certain locations to film certain sequences. And so this one, they needed like a really cool slide effect. So how do we get a slide effect? Let's go to a snowy mountain, and then... Like, what is he? He slips off the back of the shield and he becomes like a rolling snowball.
Yeah.
And so as soon as I see the rolling snowball, I'm like, oh man, it looks so stupid.
It does. It does. So but it's a kid's movie, essentially. So you just go with it and it's it's funny. Yeah. It's funny.
And when they get to this tiny little village just on the other side of the mountain, I suppose, the army is still chasing after them. And they come across Eric, you know.
What's
Eric,
left of his army.
Yeah, they'd actually gone up against Queen Badmorda and they were absolutely destroyed. So he's the last. But, you know, after the first conversation you'd had where it was Eric saying to Madmartigan, like, you know, you should be backing something. We're trying to save the land here. It's now Madmartigan turning around saying, like, look, you know, I've got a purpose. I'm here with Willow. I've got the baby. And even with them all surrounded... they capture Saoirse. You know, he's in love with Saoirse, but at the same time he'll kill her if he needs to. And you kind of believe, I do kind of believe that he'll do it. But it's just this whole escape now. You know, we got to get on the horses. We got to get going. We got to get to Tirysleen. You know, as soon as we get there, we can get everything together and we'll be fine. And there was that moment as well where Val Kilmer is looking at Saoirse's leg while she's on the horse, and he's like, "I'm looking at your leg because I want to break it."
That's so romantic.
Yeah.
But yeah, she eventually manages to push him off the horse and get away. Of course, Madmartigan's torn between going back to Willow and then running off for his new love.
Yeah.
But he comes to his senses, gets on the horse, and he chases after Willow to get to Tirysleen. And they get there waiting to find an army ready to help them face Badmorda, and only find everyone there has been trapped in stone.
Yeah. Like you don't really see like everything, like the ins and outs of this castle. It's literally just this kind of front entranceway, and Madmartigan's just like screaming his head off, just like, Willow, or you know, Raziel, we were supposed to find an army here, you know, and Badmorda's already been there, turned everything to stone. There's trolls, but not the same trolls. Like, are these like original? The trolls don't look like this. I know there's many different types of genre of trolls. I don't want to get completely nerded out about it. But it's like these types of trolls are not, to me, they're not trolls.
Yeah.
You know?
The one of the most least convincing aspects of the film. They kind of didn't quite achieve maybe the effect they were going for with them.
Yeah, the combination, like you said, of the superimposing of the brownies on screen, I can totally get, because you needed that totally small effect. But like, especially in this battle sequence, there's a couple of times where these things are kind of crawling all over the place, and I'm like, huh? What's that? Oh yeah, it's a bloody troll, because it's just completely black of matted fur. But Madmartigan comes across the armory. He finds his own armor. He realizes that if he basically fucking John Wicks the castle.
Well, yeah, I mean, he's on his own journey. He's supposed to be this world's greatest swordsman.
Yeah.
Of course, he starts in chains, then he ends up in women's clothing, you know, before he eventually gets his armor, and then eventually gets his sword, and makes a name for himself. So he's got quite a bit of a nice arc throughout the film. And so, yeah, seeing him there in the armor, ready to face this entire army on his own. He races to close the door and bar it.
Yeah.
He prepares some defensive fortifications. He lays bear traps. He lays spike traps or bow and arrow traps.
Yeah.
And whilst Willow is trying to still transform Raziel, unfortunately turning her this time into a goat. And that's when the army attacks. And, you know...
He's already used the wand as well. I don't know what this plan was. She tells him to use the wand on the troll, which is about to kill him. and he literally just rips its flesh off. Like, it's a really cool special effect where its skin just completely falls off. And then these two heads grow out of it, and you're thinking, what the fuck's that? And he boots it into the water, and this huge, giant, two-headed... I never knew what this thing was until recently, where it's an Eborisk, a two-headed Eborisk.
It's called an Ebor Sisk.
Ebor Sisk.
Do you know what it was named after?
Yeah, Ebor and Cisco, the
film critics.
Yeah.
Apparently, Kale is also a film critic.
Yeah.
And notorious for giving films bad reviews. It just so happened that Siskel and Ebert gave this film their lowest rating and said it was one of the worst films of the year.
Of course they did. They did.
Yeah. They didn't know.
Yeah, I don't watch Ebert Siskel.
But it's a great moment when it bursts up, and Madmartigan's swinging his sword around like, "Ha ha! You have to fight me!" And everyone runs away. It's like, "Ha ha! My name is Legend." Until, of course, the humorous moment where he turns around and sees the giant kaiju behind him, and he runs off to join the other armies.
He's run outside, and they're all stood together, and he looks at Sorcerer. And then General Kara's like, "Get him!" And he runs back indoors, which is such a great idea because now you're bringing them in to fight the monster as well. And like yes, it's over the top. Yes, it probably could have been filmed better depending on what you're after. But I just have so much fun because, Madmartigan's showing exactly why he's the most badass swordsman ever, because he's just killing everybody left and right. Willow is trying to keep the baby as safe as she can, but he's also trying to deal with the trolls. He's also trying to deal with this two-headed freaking monster. And it's just, like I said, it's just action after action, like bigger than like the sequences we've had before. Everything that we've had before has led to this moment. And now you're just like, right, the heroes have to kind of prove their worth. And there's just this amazing moment where, Willow is in trouble. Madmartigan makes his way all the way through this battle sequence to then rescue Willow. And then he turns and he sees the monster. And Willow's just like, "Madmartigan!" And Madmartigan goes, and leaps off the ledge onto the monster. Like he knew, like...
I've got to do this now. Yeah, there was a great moment as well. I love the moment where the troll just yells at Madmartigan, and Madmartigan turns and yells back at the troll before kicking it off the bridge. I was like, oh, that's the Brendan Fraser mummy moment.
Yeah.
I was like, so it goes to Madmartigan first, as far as I remember it happening in film. Great moment. But there is some nice implied gore with this monster, this two-headed dragon.
Oh yeah.
That's literally tearing people in two. I mean, the two of them both tear that troll in two. We don't see it, but it's implied.
But they're eating guards as well. You can kind of hear screams and then legs kicking. I realised this time, where in the background, I can see people running around on fire.
Yeah,
because it's breathing fire onto them.
I also have to bring up. I always shake my head when I hear the Wilhelm scream.
Yeah.
This film did it 3 bloody times.
That's why it's so good.
We had the moment when they were escaping on the horseback. We had the moment outside Tirus Leen where the brownies fired the spear. And then we had it again in Castle Nockmar when they, towards the end of the film, when they spring the trap, essentially.
Yeah.
But there was also another massively deleted scene here. And now... you could say the shortcomings of Sorcerer's character is that she just becomes immediately bewitched with Madmartigan and joins the good team. Because she switches sides here and fights alongside him.
Yeah.
Now, there was a shot that's still in the film where the raven lands on top of one of the stones with somebody trapped inside.
Right.
That's Sorcerer's father. And he talks to Sorcerer and says, "Yes, your mother, Queen Bathmorda, did this to me and all these people. She's a piece of shit. Go and kill her."
Right.
And she's like, "I'm sorry, Dad. I didn't realise." And so she joins Madmartigan and Willow.
Wow.
Not just because she was smitten by Madmartigan. I was like, you kind of needed a little bit more with her character because she doesn't get very much.
They would, yeah, but at the same time, for me, like I said, in this self-contained universe, like, the reasons I would give it would be, her mother has kept her kind of away from men, has shown her that, like...
away from the truth and everything else.
Like, you're just my bodyguard, I will keep you alive, I'm super queen evil bitch, basically. And it was always destiny that she would finally meet a man, and fall in love and have children. It would thus be, like, the greatest swordsman in the world and this baby. It does kind of work. Like, the deleted scene, her meeting the father, I need a bit more explanation for these people in stone sometimes, because as soon as they turn up the castle, you see like a few, and that's what I mean. You only stay in this courtyard. You don't actually see the throne room. Like, I don't know who else lives at Tir's Lane, you know. And this is what I mean. Like I said at the beginning, that with the baby, you know, they're like, oh, the baby is, you know, destined to end up killing the queen. In fact, it's really Willow and Madmartigan that actually destroy the queen.
Well, it doesn't say the baby itself will kill the queen.
Well, okay, but did they? Whatever was going to happen, Madmartigan and Willow are the badasses. Madmartigan kind of kills as many people as he can, trying to protect Willow. Willow trying to protect the baby. But Kale does actually, you know, get hold of the baby towards the end and manages to escape, just as Eric is turning up with the rest of his army. And so you're really getting to the, you know, the crux of the movie where they're going to face the queen. And actually, this is kind of where I kind of lose my interest in the movie, or kind of my love for it, where I'm like, because you have the queen has to do this ritual. She can't just stab the baby. She can't just throw the baby off a bridge or something and destroy her and never be free. She has to do this kind of specific ritual to protect herself or to banish the baby. I'm not entirely sure.
I think it was along the lines of wanting to make sure that the essence or the spirit or soul of this child could not be reborn again or even enter this realm ever again. So she's deleting it from existence,
right,
forever.
But that's it. It's like that's a really specific detail of what she has to do in this ritual. You know, she wants to eradicate this baby from this land forever, because once she's got the baby, and General Kale gives it to her, she's just like, let's start the ritual. And Eric and Madmartigan and Rizal, and they're just like, look, you can't do this. You're evil. And Queen Badmora, she seems really like upset as well that Sorcerer's betrayed her. You know, like, that's it. That's everything that she's lost in this life now, even from her daughter. But she just starts calling them all pigs. You're all pigs. And like,
this is not an army. She delivers these lines with such gusto and believability.
Yes.
And but I do always laugh when she snorts her lines.
Yeah.
Or movements. But again, like, the body horror here is pretty damn scary.
Yeah.
As we see Madmartigan's tusks appearing, then we see his hands turning into hooves, then we see the wide shot of the panicking army as they are all mid-transformation.
Yeah.
Some of them looking horrifying. Some of them is like half man, half pig as they're laid upside down on the ground.
Some of them are just really pigs.
Some of them are just full-blown pigs running around.
Yeah, they're just thrown.
Even Francine and Raoul are turned into baby pigs or mini pigs. But of course, even Sorcha, it's like, Mother, you can't do this, and then she gets hit with a spell too.
Yeah.
Before Raziel was aware of what was going on, calls Willow away, says you've got to cast this protective spell.
Yes.
Once Willow realizes that his entire army and all of his friends have turned into pigs, he knows he has to turn Raziel back into her human form, and again, this is a really great effect. It's a really good mixture of CGI, morphing technology, and puppetry.
Yeah.
As she transforms into all of these different animals that are all puppets, except for the tiger.
Wow, yeah.
And this technology was the first time it had ever been used in film. Industrial Light and Magic, they knew what the filmmakers wanted.
Yeah.
Had no idea how to go about it. And they worked on it until they got this effect. And it became, it wasn't even called morphing technology at the time, but it was so impressive that James Cameron was like, I want a little bit of that. And we see it in The Abyss, then we see it in Terminator 2, we see it in Ghostbusters 2, we see it in Star Trek. And it just until it was oversaturated and movies were like, okay, no more morphing. Like, we've seen too much morphing. We need to get better. But it's a great shot. We finally get Raziel back. She grabs hold of her wand and she starts turning these pigs back into an army.
How long does it take to turn a whole army back into pigs while they're still doing this ritual?
Well, yeah, I mean, it takes one cut. So we know. So it's over. And now we have everyone back in their armor, not completely gone mental from their moments of time as pigs. Maybe they have no memory of their pig moments.
True.
But Eric's just like, look, we're not getting in that castle and into that ritual room in the time you want it. We're done. We're all going to die here, so I'm leaving.
Yeah.
And Willow's like, well, back in my village, we have these gophers, and this is what we do.
It's like kind of shooting womp rats back home.
Right, yes. And so we cut to the next morning.
Yeah, next morning.
And Raziel and Willow are like, we demand your surrender. We are the most powerful wizards and sorcerers in all the land.
Yeah. Bavmorda's still doing her ritual.
Yeah.
Like,
but every time it cuts to her, it's thunder and lightning and rain.
Yeah, like another level. Like she's gone another level.
We do see the tower. It's pretty high up in the air. Maybe it's a weather thing specific to the tower, the magic.
Well, yeah, but like...
But it does make me lose track of time of day here when it cuts back and forth.
Yeah, when we see them in morning, like, I'm like, right, this is like a whole new day. So, like I said, watching it this time for the review, I'm like, how long does this ritual take? Like, why can't she just stab the baby? Oh, she has to eradicate it. She has to send it. She keeps talking about the 13th level or something or other. So
Ascension
I'm like,
of the spell, maybe?
Yeah, so I'm like, oh, she has to get it to that 13th level. That's why it's going to take so long. Maybe they had like 2 days they could have been fucking waiting for. But they lure some guards out, just Willow and Raziel. Patricia Hayes, I mean, I remember her as the kind of the good witch, I suppose, from Neverending Story, you know, who injects fucking Falcor. But she just kind of does look... I love the fact as well, she said she was really young. But then when she realised she's really old, she's like, oh, has it been that long? I've been in that spell for that long? And they lure the guards out, and as the guards start racing towards them, Eric and Madmartigan and Saoirse and the whole army just kind of come out from these holes in the ground. And so you're like, wait, so they came out of their tents and in the black of night, without being seen by any of the guards that are on top of the evil castle that they're right next to, they just all dug holes and then parked their horses in them?
Now, the only way I can think of this is that Queen Bavmorda and the army inside think the enemy army have been completely turned into pigs, not worth watching them anymore.
Yeah.
And so, or once Raziel got brought back to normal and got the thing, she could put a spell over.
That's a
hiding spell. And I was like, how are the army going to... I imagine they dug the holes underneath the tents so that they couldn't be seen digging them. I was like, you've got these powerful sorcerers. They just made the ground disappear from under them. And so I was like, it's magic. It's magic.
It's magic. I'll go with magic.
But yeah, otherwise, if you're thinking it was just a general army that managed to dig holes to bury horses in and keep them quiet until the surprise attack, you'd be like, never.
Like, who pulled the sheets over?
Magic.
Right, okay.
That's the answer to this. It's magic.
But they managed to get inside, and now it's just a massive, huge battle sequence. And it's really quite sad, actually, as well, because, I mean, Saoirse, Willow, and Raziel, they all head upstairs to the ritual room because they need to stop Bavmorda as quickly as possible. And General Kale, played by Pat Roach, you know, amazing actor. I used to love him, and I'll Be the Same Pet. You know, he's in all 3 Indiana Jones movies.
Yeah, as a henchman.
He's just a massive, huge meathead. Like, we've seen him throughout the movie with that skull helm, which is truly iconic, especially for Willow. And he's leading from the front with all of his forces. He manages to kill Eric at one point, and you finally have that kind of camaraderie, brotherhood thing between him and Val Kilmer, where he's just
win
like,
this war for me.
Oh, and you're like, oh, Madmartigan's finally the hero.
Yeah, and goes and fights his way towards Kale, and they have a back and forth before he impales him. But it's not enough to kill him, so he ends up falling on the other sword and pulling him down onto it before the villain's death. He gets pushed off the high spot.
Like, at first, he kind of just punched him in the face, and you have that close-up of Kale going, has he gone?
Right.
I'm like, just stab him now, Madmartigan. But then, yeah, they have that whole brutal final showdown, throws him off the cliff. And this is cutting also back to the ritual room as well, where, like, this fight sequence between Raziel and Bavmorda, man, I know, like, Saruman and Gandalf did it first, but these ladies really pushed them to shame, didn't they?
Oh, hell yeah. These ladies were great. Like, the spells they were using, the way they were throwing themselves around, whether it was the magic or whatever was going on. It was great. And, and unfortunately, Raziel does lose this encounter.
Yeah.
But I don't know whether they applied extra makeup on Bavmorda, because she seemed to age, like, 50 years throughout this sequence.
It looks like... a lot of this ritual has taken a lot of her energy to take out. You know, she drastically needs to kill this baby now, or she will be destroyed. As we said, the prophecy says that's going to happen. But the baby literally does nothing. The baby has done nothing throughout the whole movie, and
it's the MacGuffin that if it didn't exist, we wouldn't. None of these characters would be here.
Yeah, but at the same time, I just think it's really funny because finally, it's, you know, when the baby is actually taken from the ritual bed by Willow. You know, Willow has always been your hero from the very beginning of the movie. You know, he was not believed to be a truly good sorcerer. He wasn't going to be brave enough to take on any kind of evil. And yet here he is, hiding the baby with facing the evil queen. He's the only one who can stop, and he throws that... I always imagined it was the last acorn, but supposedly it's only the second one he throws in the whole movie.
Well, no, it now is the third and final acorn when you have the deleted scene.
And he casts it, and she grabs it, you know, but as she starts to turn to stone, her magic is so powerful she's able to stop it. But he does his disappearing pig trick, which is just... like
it's a great callback.
Yeah, it's always that sweet little fantasy magical adventure thing, like in the Goonies, where it's like, oh, the jewels are in the marble bag. You know, here it is, where it's like, ha, I'm more powerful than you. I've made the baby disappear, and Bavmorda is just like completely shocked. like the actress is just so beautiful and just playing this portrayal of, what have you done? Where have you sent her? I've sent her to a place that you'll never find her, and she's just overcome with such anger. She raises her arm in the air and knocks all the blood to her feet, and the lightning just hits her all at once.
It's awesome as we watch her essence get sucked up into the sky and the storm's gone. You know, and Willow is accepted by Raziel as being one of the most promising sorcerers of our time.
Yeah. And
we get this wonderful wide shot of everything, like, in so much more colour now.
Yes.
To represent that the evil has been banished.
Well, it's like the people of Terrace Lean, you know, it seems like they've come back to life.
The spell's been lifted.
The spell's been lifted.
Sorcerer's dad is standing right beside her now in this shot as well.
Oh, yeah, I'm going to have to notice that next time I watch it.
Yeah. And Madmartigan and Sorcerer are together. They're going to raise this princess child.
Yes.
And it is one hell of a happy ending as they send Willow off with his new spell book back home. And yeah, we see him come back into the Shire, and everyone's celebrating his return. Even Burglecut's like, what? He's back? He's actually... No. And he does the same trick that the wizard used at the beginning, throws some fruit into the air, which turns into the bird.
Yeah.
And then which shits on Burglecut. It's a running gag. Vomit or shit in his face. And then, of course, he sees Kaya and his children. They run together and embrace as the film wraps up.
Yes.
It's beautiful.
It's beautiful.
Well, Iain, what were your favourite scenes from the film?
Oh man, just absolutely everything. There's just so many. Just everything just kind of escalates even more. I'd say everything. Maybe after the meeting of Madmartigan. You know, maybe I like him meeting the brownies. Like I said, him finding Lug. You know, and the sorcerer and Val Kilmer kind of first interactions there. I mean, definitely the fucking fight sequence at the castle with the two-headed monster. Even the hiding of the horses. I know I complain about how long that ritual takes, but it, you know, keeps the ending of the movie escalating, and I overthink it sometimes about what I would do. It just gets bigger and better, and it's magic, and woo, yeah.
Yeah, so many favourite, memorable scenes from the film. There's also great one-liners in the film as well. I always remembered this and used it as a child quite a lot. Sit in your coffin and rot. I want to cut off your head and stick it on a pig pole. Yeah. It's just like, oh, these are great lines, and those became playground taunts. I mean, I know a lot of people don't like the brownies, but watching Raoul in the giant beer mug, he just pops up, beer, and dives back in. It's like, wow.
When he's on the wagon, he's like, no more beer. I'm like, yeah, I got you, brownie.
I know, that feels, yeah. The Battle of Tirsley, again, it's fantastic. The two-headed dragon monster. Of course, all of this was foreshadowed by his kids at the start. Like, there's going to be trolls and dragons and other things out there. And yeah, and watching Willow overcome those odds is great. Watching Madmartigan flipping his sword around, showboating.
Yeah.
Great moments. The actual mutation as well of the monster when it peels its skin back, I was like, that was gross and horrible.
And the way the little heads pop out and they kind of look at each other.
Yeah,
Ooh.
yeah. I also love Queen Bathmorda. Jean Marsh was fantastic in this. This is not an army, you're all pigs.
Yes.
Great body horror moment. And yeah, her final battle with Raziel as well. Really memorable stuff. Well, Ian, I think it might come as no surprise. Do you recommend Willow?
Yeah, fuck yes. I recommend Willow. I mean, if I could have a perfect Sunday, it would probably be something along the lines of Krull, Willow, and Conan the Barbarian, just be like one fantasy moment after next with some magic thrown in and some swordsplay. With Willow, like I said, it's such a good kids movie that an adult can watch as well, that you just don't feel like you're being kind of mocked. I mean, yeah, there's some behind the scenes stuff, some stories that have been deleted. Maybe Val Kilmer was ad-libbing all of his lines all the way through, but I don't care. It works. Maybe it's Warwick Davis that kind of keeps everything going because it was his first proper lead of a film, and hell, if I could have a lead like that in a film and just pull it off. Okay, yeah, people said it was a failure in the cinema, but as soon as it hit the box office, I mean, I have the board game. I have the film on DVD and VHS. Man, I'd love playing the game on the Genesis. Willow, hell yeah.
Yeah. Now, before I get into my closing recommendation, I should also bring up that because this film did essentially, it kind of flopped in the cinema, right?
Right.
Now, there was proposed sequels for the film.
Well, yeah.
And unfortunately, they never materialized. But George Lucas did hire somebody to write 3 novels, a trilogy of books set after the movie, which, according to fans, they didn't like very much because a lot of great characters died in those books.
Right.
Which ruined your engagement then of the movie as well, because you've read how horrible they die in the next book. And I think in 2000, it was when George Lucas was starting to do the prequel Star Wars movies. He was just like, George Lucas said he's disowned the Willow books that came after the movie because they weren't what he wanted. But it was only 2 years ago, 2020, that Ron Howard did announce that there will be a Willow TV series coming to Disney Plus, Warwick Davis will be playing Willow Ufgood in this new show. Whether he's going to be the starring role, whether he's just going to be a background character, we do know that it's going to be following, perchance, a grown-up Elora Danan, which, if the book material is anything to go by, she grows up to be a bit of a spoilt brat who doesn't listen to anybody and believes that she's the chosen one, prophet one, and be damned anyone who gets in her way.
Wow.
So, it'll be interesting to see where it goes, but the behind-the-scenes stuff of the Willow TV series is starting to sneak out. I'm excited for it. But anyway, Willow is an easy recommendation for me. It's one of the best fantasy films of the 80s. It's such a joy to watch and revisit. It's truly a special film. Warwick Davis was great in the lead role, and he really is the heart and soul of the film, showing compassion and strength with determination, and he's easily likable and relatable. Val Kilmer is always on top form, and Madmartigan is a wonderful rogue character that Val brings to life effortlessly. Jean Marsh was frightening as Bathmorda, great performance from her and the whole cast. The story is easy to follow, it's engaging with lots of great characters, monsters, action scenes filled with swords and sorcery. The effects were outstanding and revolutionary at the time. The art of morphing, the matte paintings, use of green screens, puppets and sets were great, while the brownie scenes were noticeably weaker. The comic relief they provided made up for it. James Horner created a brilliant and memorable score for the film, which gives the action scenes moments of rousing heroic feats, giving the story that sense of adventure, and it also intimidates and creates dread for the villains. It's a great score. The film is a childhood favourite. It's a classic, and one always worth revisiting, and it never disappoints. It's a fun, action, fantasy adventure film. And the adventure doesn't get any bigger than this. Thanks for watching Off the Shelf Reviews.
Madmartigan.
What the hell happened to you?